Today, you guys are going to learn about solubility rules, which, if you remember, 2 classes ago, you made 15 solutions, 15 reactions. Some of those mixtures actually reacted, some did not. And today, you're going to learn why. And it's all because of this thing called solubility rules. So let's just dive on in. So before we really dive in, I would like to just go over some vocabulary with you. So the word dissolve means to break down into ions. Okay. The word solvent is the substance that is doing the dissolving. So it's the substance that's breaking down ions, okay? And then the solute is a compound or substance that is being dissolved. Okay. So we have the word dissolve, which is to break down into ions. We have the word solvent, which is the substance that is going to, or that is doing the dissolving. And we have solute, the substance that is being dissolved. Now, we have something that is called soluble, which means it is a compound that is able to be dissolved. And then we have insoluble, which is a compound that is not able to dissolve. When a compound dissolves or is soluble, it stays as a liquid. Nothing happens, all right? But if it's insoluble, it will become something called a precipitate. Which is a solid that crashes out of the liquids. So this is what you saw when you put two liquids together and a solid appeared. That solid was a precipitate. It was an insoluble compound. It was not able to be dissolved. Okay, so there are, I discussed briefly, I would like to just draw, so soluble, you have your cup, you've got your liquid and the compound, you can't see it. Insolubles, you've got your beaker or cup, you've got your liquid, and it has crashed out. Okay, good. All right, now there are some few rules that you must learn, and you must have them memorized. So solubility rules. These are going to be compounds that are typically soluble. They are able to be dissolved. Okay, and then there's going to be some exceptions. When they're mixed with something else, they will become insoluble. So typically, our soluble, able to be dissolved compounds are the group 1 metals, NH4, NO3, CHCOO, which is called acetate, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and sulfate. Typically, these 8 compounds are soluble, meaning they are able to dissolve. Alkali metals are always soluble. NH4 is always soluble. NO3 is always soluble. Acetate is always soluble. Chlorine, bromine, and iodine these 3 are soluble except when bonded to lead, silver, and silver 2+. So if you mix chlorine with lead, silver, or silver 2+, it will become insoluble and a solid will show, okay? And then sulfate is insoluble when mixed with strontium 2+, bromine, barium, don't know why I did that, barium 2+, lead 2+, calcium 2+, silver 1+, and silver 2+. Okay, so these are the typical compounds or elements that will dissolve and stay as liquids, but when they are mixed, with their exceptions, they will become insoluble. Okay, perfect. Let's move on. Okay, so then these are the insoluble compounds. So these are typically compounds that will not dissolve. They will create those crashed out precipitates, those solids. So carbonate, phosphate, C2O4 2-, chromate, sulfur, hydroxide, and oxygen. Okay, so my carbonate to my chromate these guys are insoluble except when mixed with group 1 metals and NH4, ammonia. Sulfur's exception is when it's bonded to group 1, group 2, and ammonia. So sulfur is insoluble unless it's mixed with one of those, then it'll be turned into the liquid. And then lastly, OH and oxygen are insoluble or become soluble when they are bonded to group 1 and group 2. So these are the compounds that mix solids. However, when they're mixed with their solutions, they dissolve. Okay, so they are usually those that make solids, except when they are bonded to group 1, group 2, and ammonia. Then they become able to be dissolved. Okay, Let's just do some practice problems. Which compound is soluble? So we have chlorine, which is soluble, and it's not bonded to its exception. So NaCl is going to be soluble. Cl is bonded with silver, which makes it insoluble. So this is the exception. That makes it insoluble. Okay, which one is soluble? H2SO4 or CaSO4. So sulfuric acid, and calcium sulfate. So let's see. So sulfates are typically soluble. Here, sulfate's bonded with H, which is not an exception, but here, sulfate is bonded with calcium. Calcium is the exception. That makes it insoluble. So H2SO4 is the soluble one. It will stay as a liquid. Okay, and then which ones are insoluble? Calcium carbonate or sodium phosphate? Well, carbonate is CO3. It's in our insoluble compound list. And its exception is except when it's bonded to group 1 alkali metals or NH4. Well, CaCO3, Ca carbonate is a group 2. So this one's going to be the insoluble one. PO4 is the same thing. It's insoluble except when mixed with group 1. Sodium is a group 1, so it's the exception. And it makes it dissolve. So it makes it soluble. So CaCO3, calcium carbonate, is the insoluble compound. It will stay as a solid. And lastly, Al2S3, aluminum sulfide, or potassium sulfide. Well, sulfide is typically insoluble except when bonded to group 1 or group 2 metals. K is a group 2 metal, so it will make this soluble, which means Al2S3 is the insoluble one because aluminum is not a group 1 or group 2 metal, so that one will stay as a solid. Okay, you have a bunch of practice problems ahead of you. They're really easy. I think you could get them done if you put your mind to it in this class. So go practice, and then when you're ready, you should be ready for the focus area because now you've learned everything you need to know, and we are ready to review next class for your exam. So congrats. This has been a really long and in-depth unit, and you've done a fantastic job. I'm super proud of you guys, so just keep it up. Okay.